So joining us today, we've got the man that is CaniSports. Cani, thanks a lot for joining us, my man.
I'm very happy about it, mate. Been watching all these videos, so now I'm gonna be part of it. Gonna listen to this one probably when it comes out in the gym.
Magic. So we've been on here now shooting the breeze a wee bit about gaming and stuff like that, and I think for me, like Sorare, like the thing that I've always loved about it and always kind of seen the potential with it in is like the whole kind of esports kind of gaming angle that it can kind of grow and evolve into.
Yeah,
And whenever I see guys like yourself and the Penfez and there's a few other guys knocking about that have got that kind of background coming in, for me it's a real vindication on what I've been kind of looking forward to in the future,
yeah.
if that makes sense. So for today, we're both a little bit loosey goosey on what we might be covering, but I just thought yourself would be a great person to come on and have a chat with, just if nothing else, through that kind of angle of coming in from an organized kind of situation where you're finding yourself now in a kind of new setting, but very
Yeah.
familiar at the same time. And then trying to marry up with what is familiar that works and then what's new that you need to kind of figure out. And when I've been watching your videos over the last couple of days, it's all been about those sneaky hints and tips and the tools you're finding on Sorare data. How
Yeah.
have you kind of found it over the last month? Because you've changed quite a lot, haven't you?
I really have. For me personally, it was like going from, how can I put this? I watched, obviously Nep and I were talking about this a lot, about this whole Sorare platform, and he has been involved like 8, 9 months ago, I believe. And then he kind of stopped for a while. And then in the last few months after we stopped playing Call of Duty, we were all like looking for something to do. So he came up with this whole Sorare stuff, and I kind of listened to him, and I was like, man, this sounds really exciting. I want to get involved in this because I personally, every time I played FPL, so Fantasy Premier League,
Yep.
every time I played that, after the first week, I'm gone. I'm gone. I'm finished. I just can't keep up with it. I had like a lot of my viewers from the main channel obviously join in and take part in it, and people were excited about it, but I just can't do it, man. I just didn't have any interest in it because there's nothing I can get out of it other than bragging rights,
Yep.
and that just wasn't something I wanted. So him talking about Sorare really got me involved in it, and then I jumped all over limiteds. Just just went crazy on limiteds. I said I want to play All Star, America. I want to play all the divisions, every single division I want to take part in. And then I quickly realized, yeah, this ain't it.
Uh, it's definitely well, the thing is with strategies, and it's one of these things. I've had a lot of different strategies over the last 2 years. Is you can make any of them work. Really, it just depends on the execution. But sometimes a lot of people, myself included, you think, "Oh, this will work," and then it's not until you start trying to flesh it out you realize, maybe
Yeah.
there's this requires more time or a bit more ETH than I'm prepared for, and it's
Mm,
about kind of consolidating and repositioning. Um, but in terms of that kind of thing with FPL, like I've never been a big fantasy player per se, because I'm all about payoff. I'm all about, me having, as you say, like bragging rights or some
yeah.
sort of payoff. Like I was thinking about this driving in because I knew where we were going to be talking today. I remember, like, did you ever play Pro Evolution Soccer?
Oh,
Yes.
yes. Of
Yeah.
course. Of course. Yeah.
So like I must have been like 14 or something, 15, and we'd all go around to my friend's house at the weekend, and it would be like, right, we're going to just scrap all the teams, and everyone gets a shot each to pick a player. So it's like you start with the pad, right? I'm taking Toldo, and then somebody else will take Buffon, somebody takes Dida, and it goes
Yeah.
round, and you kind of build these custom squads,
Yeah.
and then you just play all night on Pez with these teams that you've butchered and put together, and and then for the longest time, that was the only way you could do something like that until like Ultimate Team came around. And when
Mm,
Ultimate Team came around, I was like, yes, finally, somebody's doing this.
yeah.
We could do it all together, jump in.
Mm.
But again, it's been spoke about enough with yourself and a few others. But it, as a business model for the consumer, it's so draining on your
Mm.
resources. Like I've
Oh,
had,
mate. I've spent so much money on this. Like I could own a, probably if I jumped into Sorare a year ago, I probably could have bought, I don't know, a unique Mbappe with the money I spent on FIFA points. It's just ridiculous. Of course, for me as a YouTuber at that point, it counts as like a business expense and stuff like that. But still, man, just seeing how much money people throw into this, and even including myself, of course, it's just mad because at the end of the year, it's all gone. It's just all gone. And I get it. You want to have the best players and you want to be able to compete on the highest level and stuff like that. But at the same time, the whole fun aspect kind of went away because the gameplay has become more and more competitive. People watch thousands of tutorials to know every single game breaking mechanic. and you're just sat there like, yeah, I just want to play football, man. I just want to play football. This is not necessarily what I want. I don't want to be competing every time I play this game, and I don't want to freak out because I personally seen myself in my own worst moments only when I play FIFA. So nothing gets me raging as much as some stupid things happening in my defense where my defender just doesn't clear a ball or my goalkeeper dives the wrong way, and I'm like, yeah, this is it. I'm gonna explode right now. So yeah, that whole thing with the spending and not getting anything out of it, I didn't really like it. So Sorare was the perfect solution.
Aye. Well, my missus will tell you anytime I've lost a game of FIFA, it's never my fault. It's always
Yeah, same, same.
it's one of those ones. But again, like when I come into So Rare, like that kind of aspect of like me being able to put together the players I like, you know, the ones that I watch, the ones I believe in, whether it be a young
Mm,
up and coming kid or like one of my favorite cards that you've got in your club is Andre Kramaric. So that's somebody
mm,
who I've kind of followed across football for the last like 5 years or so. Um, but guys like that, you know, it doesn't need to be a wonder kid per se, but a guy that you know can deliver, does deliver,
yeah,
maybe doesn't get all the headlines, but in the right kind of football setting, maybe FIFA if he's got an amazing team of the week card or something, or and So Rare if he's hitting the big scores, these
yeah,
guys can pay off just as good as your Mbappe's and your Lewandowski's.
yeah, yeah.
And
It's just the thing of like doing your research, knowing what kind of coach he has, and if the coach kind of relies on him and wants him to be involved in the attack as much. And I've been watching all the Hoffenheim games, for example, since I bought Kramaric. I've been watching every single game, and every time I see him working extremely hard, you can see him back in the defense, like right in front of centre backs. A lot of times where he just likes to get involved as much as possible, but I feel like he hasn't been able to hit the scores in the forward position as much. And it's been an issue for me. So I am kind of looking at Kramaric like they have some good matchups coming up right now. They're going to play against Bielefeld. So I'm looking at that and thinking, okay, if he hits like two good scores back to back, I might take my profits on him and then actually go for like a top champion Europe striker that consistently gets goals rather than having someone that, yes, gets great all round scores, right? He does well in that sense and gets the 45s to 50s a lot of times, but he doesn't hit that top tier as much. But it might just be me coming in at the worst time to pick up Kramaric because as soon as I sell him, I can see him get like 2 assists and a goal in the next game. That's the
big
type of
time.
player he is, right? And I'm just waiting for that. I'm just waiting and thinking, okay, is this going to happen or not? And that's kind of the beauty and the pain of So Rare.
Big time.
But it's just that waiting and seeing if things are going to work out for yourself.
So at the moment, like the big thing that I've been working towards and talking about for the last like probably 2 months or so is like game week 248. So for anyone
Yeah.
at home that's not aware, game week 248 is basically what I'm calling the convergence. It's when all the leagues are back and it's just
Yeah.
going to be the Royal Rumble. It's going to be pandemonium. You've recently made a lot. You've done a lot of surgery on your club, as we're saying over the last month. Limiteds
Yeah.
are out, rares are in.
Yeah.
As I'm looking at them now, it's very Eurocentric at the moment. Are
Yeah.
you casting your mind out towards these other regions, Asia and America, that kind of thing?
Definitely. I personally like the All Star Rare team that I have right now is like a Cercle Bruges stack slash Sion.
Yep.
And this next game week, they both have kind of all right matchups. So if they both do well, I might just get out of these guys in profit, sell them on, and then probably look into getting like an Asia stack to put into All Star Rare because I really want to have a team over there as well. So yeah, I'm definitely looking at Asia. I mean, I have Jesus Ferreira, but mainly for the under 23s as my forward from America. I had Felix Torres that I just sold today, so I'm gonna try and look into Asia a little bit because they seem to be a little bit cheaper than the European top players, even still right now with all the hype coming in.
Yep.
And I feel like it might just be the right move.
Yeah, well, I've found about Asia in the past, like I've always had a couple of Asian cards knocking about, is because like they're not household names, and especially when you get into Korea, a lot of the names can be confusing.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. Like if I was to say to you, oh, you should go look at Ho Si Hun or something like
Mm.
that. You know, it's not a name. You know, a lot of the names for the Western society, at least anyway, it's not as easy as saying, oh, like a Lopez, or you can identify people by
Yeah.
their name a bit easier.
Yeah.
So it takes a bit more work to identify, oh, that's that guy, and you know, that sort of thing. So because of that, a lot of guys, like you say, even with the hype of it's coming back, a lot of them can be overlooked because a lot of people see it as a lot of work into something that's not as, for lack of a better term, sexy. You know?
Yeah, that's why I feel like following people that know what's going on in these certain divisions is so important, man. Like knowledge is absolute power in so rare. If you know what's going on in these, like in Argentina, like Techers, for example, he was talking about that in your past video.
Yep.
If you know about like Austrian Bundesliga or the Asian side of things, where you can't get too much information right now as a foreigner, obviously, and translating things, it gets mixed up and you don't really know what's going on. It's just class being able to reach out to people in the Sorare community. And that's something that I personally have experienced coming in as a new person. People are just so welcoming and happy to share their thoughts and ideas. And that's another thing that I really like because I come from Ultimate Team where every game you play and you beat someone, hostility, right? Messages come through, people call you names all the time. Oh, you're shit. EA rigged your account because you work for them and you're a game changer. So you get every ball landing in front of your striker while I don't, and all that stuff. Yeah. It's just nice being able to move away from that negativity and come into a community that's been so like welcoming and really kind, and being able to jump into like Discord channels with some of the biggest accounts when it comes to so rare and content creators like yourself. It's been really helpful to understand the platform so quickly. So yeah, I'm really thankful for that.
I think that's a great point you raise. And one thing I think that came to my mind as soon as you were saying that is the great thing about So Rare is as much as we're all competing against each other, there's nothing you can do about it once you've submitted your teams.
Yeah.
It's not like, you know, like you say, Chani, or you've got special cards, or there's maybe some sort of conspiracy that because you make videos that you're
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
an OP. It's just, we've all put the same teams in. You can see everyone's lineup before the game starts, you
yeah,
know, and it's then down to what happens on the pitch, you know.
yeah.
So it is kind of one of those ones. It's good luck to you, but I hope you don't beat me, you know.
Yeah.
Which always makes for a good environment, I think.
That's what happens in the higher divisions, right? People really pay a lot of attention to like opponents' lineups and their galleries and looking at that. Obviously, in the rare divisions, I don't think it really happens as much, but
No.
in the super rare and uniques, you have to do your research on your opponent's gallery, man. It just has to be. I've seen You Never Walk Alone talk about this, and it was like, oh yeah, man, that's true. You have to know your opponents.
Yeah, well, I've been speaking to those guys for a little while, and that's always the thing that I find most interesting about that level of the game is that dynamic of I don't really want to buy this guy, but I probably should so that somebody else doesn't get him, you know, kind of
Yeah.
idea.
Hence why they
Um,
like put in the bids to kind of increase the price of Haaland, right?
yeah,
They thought like, I'm not gonna get it, but if someone
you're
gets it,
paying.
I'm gonna hurt their pockets.
Yeah, because when I was brand new, like starting to get into like super rares and even fancying the idea of maybe I'll go for uniques and stuff like that. Like, I
Mm,
remember I was going for I've got a Darwin Nunes super rare, right? But that was like the third attempt on an auction that I had for getting him. And the very first one I went for, AJ won it, and I sent him a wee message after A.J. I sent him a wee
yeah.
message afterwards. I was like, "Oh, congratulations on the auction. Do me a favor and going to let me have the next one." And then he messaged back. He's like, "Oh, I'm sure you'll get it. Don't worry," and all that. And then the next one came out, and then I can't remember who got the second one, but it was somebody else. I was like, bastard. And then I was like, I'm not going to get this card because all the whales will be after it. Eventually, I got one, which was nice. But
He's
I,
such a good talent as well.
yeah,
Congrats on having that one.
well, back at that time, so that was like kind of this time last year. Like, see the kind of situation you've put yourself into of moving from limiteds to rares. I was kind of doing the same thing about a year ago, but trying to get some blue cards in. And we were talking about this, I think, before we hit record. But the game has a very strong like pay to win angle at the
Yeah.
moment for like especially the upper divisions. And the situation I'm always looking at, and I would recommend this for even people today, is trying to put yourself in the position of in a year from now, how competitive do you see the game becoming, and how big do you see it coming? Is there an
Mm,
opportunity for something that I might not be able to get the most out of today, but in a year from now, we could be very valuable to sell, or I
yeah.
may be in a better position to use. So I just started scooping up like a Nemeka and a Nunez and these types of guys for that kind of angle.
Yeah.
And thankfully it kind of paid off. But I think I'm seeing a lot of accounts similar to yourself that are doing that with the rare angle.
Yeah. I feel
So
like it's I know the limiteds have a lot of liquidity in them, right? So you can like sell on players quite quickly in there and people really want to get involved in that tier. But for my budget and my disposable income, the rares just make more sense. And I personally see the platform still growing a lot, right? So I'm a true believer that if they announce like the Premier League or something like that, some huge licensing deals, that we will easily double in terms of users.
Big
And
time.
then when you have rares where you have this scarcity of them being around just 100 times each season, and people already hold so many of them, it's just natural for the prices to keep going up. Hence why I like bought that Musiala. I'm fully aware that he's not necessarily like one of the best scorers right now in under 23, but the kid's 18 and he's playing in a team that has like the best stacks in the game, right? So as a Bayern fan myself and as someone that truly believes in his ability, every time he plays full 90s, you see great scores in him.
Yep.
So I just expect him to slowly being put into the team as other players have been slowly getting into the squad back in the day with like the likes of Kimmich and stuff like that, replacing the likes of Lam at the time. And now Musiala possibly moving into like a center midfield, center attacker midfield role. Once Thomas Müller is gone, I can easily see him take over that position, but Müller is probably going to play until he's 40 anyways. By that time, he's not going to be under 23 anymore. But yeah, there's a lot of like thinking, all right, this platform is definitely going to grow a lot because there's only like 80, 90,000 users at the moment. If you
Yep.
think of FUT and how many users that game has and how many people spend thousands and thousands on it, there's just so much potential if they do the marketing right, if they bring people in to improve the onboarding and stuff like that. I can personally see this platform just blow up even more than it already has. I've seen some people talk about like, oh, the boom already happened or there's another boom coming and stuff like that. I don't think people realize how much of a boom we could be seeing
Yep.
if this is done right,
Of
because
course.
they haven't done any marketing apart from the La Liga stuff on the sides, right? That's the
That's it.
only stuff I see. And yeah, man, I hope they do it right. I really, really hope so.
Well, I remember when Bayern Munich first came on the platform, the player that I'd put a firm target on, I went after all 5 of his super rare auctions, Chani,
Mm.
and I was one bid light every time,
Ah,
and the price went up every time, and I kept thinking, I'll get the next one, and it didn't happen, and that was Goretzka. But
oh,
I also
pain.
wanted, yeah, mate. Honestly, the first one went for like just over an ETH, and I was like, I'll get the next one. And then that went for like an ETH and a half, and I was like, I'll get the next one. And then it was an ETH in eight, ETH
Yeah.
point eight, and I was like, I'll get the next one. And then like,
Yeah.
yeah, not happened. But when they first came on, I was like, Goretzka, Muller, Musiala, they're the ones that I want a piece of, you know. And Musiala from day one, he's had a few little windows where he got cheap because he doesn't play all the time, as you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyone who watches him, you can quite clearly see the guy is made of silk. You know, he
Ah, he's
is.
so good. He's so good, man.
He's
Like the
tidy.
way he dribbles around players, his eye for a pass as well. It's just such a talented player that I easily see being like a starting lineup player for Bayern very, very soon. And it's just the one thing that kind of surprised me was that they extended with Coman. And that was
Yeah,
like, maybe Musiala is not going to get any play time soon. But I like the fact that he's kind of moved centrally a little bit more because he used to play a little bit down the wings and he did well at that time as well. But yeah, in that central role, he could do really well. I expect him to be an offensive beast when it comes to that, like decisives all around the place, I think.
do you think there's any room for Kimmich to go back to right back?
Phew. Uh, I don't know. I mean, now
Because
with
Sula's been
Sule
kind of right
moving,
back.
yeah, with Sule moving over now, I just don't know. Maybe they are looking out to get someone in anytime soon because I think Kimmich down that central spot, man, he's just class. Just
Yeah,
like Lam at the time, starting off at right back and then moving into the center. I think it'd be a shame to move him into that spot because I don't think he likes it personally. I think he
oh
wants
really?
to play CDM as far as I'm concerned.
Fair enough.
So yeah,
I was just curious more than anything because when I look at Bayern and I look at Musiala and I see Sula, and again, a lot of people don't really pay attention to Bundesliga. Will probably think Sula is just a big eight, a big a big mountain of a man.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
he's just a big powerhouse. And that's all he's
yeah,
got. He's actually a really good player to be able to play right back for the size he is. You know that kind of says a lot. So then I
yeah.
think, right, well, Sula's not going to be there long. What could be the progression be? Musiala has to get in the team at some point.
Has to,
He's
yeah,
he's not
definitely.
going to place Goretzka or Muller because they're just different.
Yeah.
You know. But then it's
It's
like
tough.
for me, I think,
Tolisso is the one right now. Like he has to be
yeah,
the one that takes over that spot for sure. Like Zabitzer isn't isn't the type of player I personally see playing for Bayern in a starting lineup. I'm assuming they brought him in as like a backup to be coming off the bench and stuff, but I think he just has to have that left center midfield spot locked down. So Musiala, Goretzka, Kimmich, that's ideally what I'm hoping for.
So you think he'll be more of an attacking player? I'm a big Sabitzer fan, by the way, and I was raging that he went to Bayern.
Yeah, it's a shame for
So good
his
at Leipzig,
career,
man.
technically. Yeah.
So you think Musiala could end up being in one of the wide positions then when he sets in?
I mean, I see him as like I guess like a free roaming 8 type of thing,
Yep.
right? He can play that role really well, but his dribbling ability down the wings is also extremely good. Like his ability to get past people. I can see him playing multiple positions, which makes me even more confident when it comes to his future and being a starter in that Bayern lineup. Because as soon as like someone like a Coman who constantly picks up injuries gets injured, I can easily see him come in there and play a couple of months, right? But obviously, with like Sane and Nabri, them both also keep getting injured a lot of times. So there's a lot of opportunity for him to get playtime. I don't see it happening like this year, but I think by this time next year, I hope he would get like at least 50% starting lineup time.
Yeah, I can't see him not getting more minutes because they clearly rate him so highly, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, as I say, if you watch him, he's just made of silk. But again, I'm having a look at the rares that you've picked up. The one thing that does strike me as I look a bit closer is your Anto Gergic, Dimitri Payet, and Fabian Ruiz. You know,
Yeah.
three big hitting midfielders. What was it that drew you to picking up midfielders like that?
One thing I kind of noticed for myself was I don't know if this is like my known knowledge or stuff like that, but personally, I was seeing that midfielders, especially for like threshold grind and stuff like that, players like Anto were looking very solid at the time. He's like one of my first purchases on the platform. I bought him very, very cheap at the time, and now he's been doing extremely well. So I got pretty lucky there. But at that time, I did little research and realized, yeah, this guy's getting decent scores. Let me pick him up because he's like on a budget that I was on at the time. He was looking very good. And ever since then, he has blown up. Like last game, he got 2 goals, 1 free kick, 1 penalty, and he takes all the corners. He's like a set piece taker for the team, and they're on the up at the moment. Had a good game against Basel. Now they're going to be playing against the 10th in the league. I just see him getting better and better. And I can easily see him being like a typical, let's say, Mainz midfielder, right? Like
Yeah,
that would be the perfect step in progression. And he's only 24. So I thought I need these all round scorers like Hudemakers I got for the under 23. He was looking very good lately. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to get this kid in because for my budget for an under 23, I need like a solid scorer that can get me at least 50s, kind of guaranteed. And then I can spread my budget on higher point total players on the other positions. And Hudemakers kind of allowed me to do that. So yeah, the midfield thing, I don't know, it just popped out to me like I need good all-round scorers to have consistency in the squad. And then when the attackers and the other ones that I invest so much into get those top games, it just accumulates to really good point total.
yeah. Because I think one of the things like, I kind of mentioned like Goretzka and stuff like that earlier on. I always get drawn to like box to box players midfield wise. You know, just I love
Yeah,
watching them. But unfortunately, on So Rare, they're quite black or white, hit and miss. You know,
yeah,
whereas I say your Ruiz, your Payet, and your Gergic set piece takers, goal dangerous, assist dangerous. You know, they've got
yeah.
there's a very consistent profile between the three of them.
Mm,
I was just interested to how you came to that, but all makes kind of logical sense. See what you were saying there with the Gergic. That's exactly kind of what I did with Asia. So like when I joined the platform, maybe about within the first month or two, MLS got launched, and then the J League got launched very quickly, one after the other, quite soon. And it was a case of jumping onto SofaScore and FootMob and just getting, you know, who. And one thing I always like to do, and I recommend this to anyone, when you go onto these third-party websites and just look at the real world of football, I try and always find guys that come into like the top 20 in the league for multiple statistics. You know, they're not maybe
yeah.
top five and everything, but they're top 20,
Mm,
like four things. And that strategy for like Japan, who I knew no players for, I ended up picking up guys that have been on to become, you know, Rio Hitate, Koki Machida, amongst a few other guys that have went on to, I sold for a lot of money or they did pretty good for me. So I think for anyone who is going into territory they're not familiar, it might be the Swiss league, it could be the Dutch league, it could be Japan, anything. Like another guy that popped up in that situation was when the Dutch league came on this time last year, a guy called Girano Kerk. I don't know if I've said that properly.
Yeah.
He's
The
now went to
winger, right?
Lokomotiv.
Like right wing or something. Yeah.
Yeah, he's now went to Lokomotiv. So Girano Kerk in the Eredivisie, he was like top 15 for lots of attacking stats last year. And if you look at his SO5s, they're pretty okay. But then in the summer, Ralph Rangnick signed him for Lokomotiv Moscow. And when you see things like that happen in the real world of football, where you've just looked at raw data and,
Yeah.
this guy kind of ticks a few boxes for me, but then you see it translating somehow in the real world. Like a big, for me, I love Rangnick. I don't know what your opinion
Yeah.
is. I know he's getting slated now at Man
I
United.
like him. I like him a lot.
I like him a lot. But as soon as like that happened, I'm like, oh, felt a wee bit of vindication. I never bought the guy, but then I think to myself, well, whatever I was looking at that brought me to him is obviously a good kind of path to go down, because somehow it's led other people
Yeah.
to signing him that I respect and all that kind of thing. When it comes to like America and Asia and stuff like that, other than like grabbing the ears of people that have been on the platform for a little while, is there any like main resources that you're leaning on in terms of these? Like, do you use whoscore.com or SofaScore? What do you kind of lean on?
I mean, as a beginner myself, I was using FOTMob and stuff to look into stats and all that, like see their average scores. But the more I got involved into the Sorare community, I've been getting like info from people like FB Ref. I think that's the page that Sojiva uses.
Yeah.
I saw it in his videos. And I was like, wow, these stats are very interesting. Like, where does he find these? So I looked into that, and ever since then, like yesterday, I think I started looking into it. I'm just like obsessed. I'm looking at all the stats of the players. I'm like, oh wait, hold on. Let me maybe that one. Yeah, that one is looking good. Let me get him into the squad. So yeah, like even looking at someone like Musa Diaby right now, who for Leverkusen is doing really well.
Yep.
I looked at his stats on that page and I was like, wow, this kid actually does well, right? Like because I watched him a couple of times. I think he's very talented. He's quick. He's quite all right in dribbling, but I never saw that end product in him. And lately, it seems like he's been picking it up. And I feel like it's like a momentum thing with the entire Bayer Leverkusen team, like performing to the level that they are. Seeing someone like Wirtz constantly getting goals and assists, and bringing in a striker like Schick, who has been doing really well lately. Just generally, I think the vibe in that team has kind of led him to take that step forward. And now looking at the stats on that page, I'm like, yeah, this kid, man, he's getting lots of chances. There was like a thing where he was compared to Mbappe. And I don't want to lie here, I'm not 100% sure, but in terms of like shots taken to goal conversion rate, he was like doing better than Mbappe. Nice. So I was like, okay, all right then, this is interesting. And he only goes for like what 2.2k in euros right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I looked at that and I was like, yeah, maybe I should pick this guy up to maybe play him in the under 23s and stuff like that. But yeah, just having those resources and finding these pages, it makes you spend even more time scouting players, which I like though. I really enjoy it because I currently my schedule is like one day of a lot of work on YouTube and then one day of not so much. And on these days, like this one today, I like to just sit there and do my research while my wife is working anyways. So I just sit there and look at young players and think, oh, maybe his stats aren't that good. And then I go onto another page and it says, actually, he is really good in what he does and compared to others in his position. So yeah, FB Ref is one that I use now, but it's only like for the top 5 leagues, sadly, I think, in terms of like the stats shown. Then FOTMob was another one that I used for like scores and just keeping track of what's happening in games and seeing like average scores for the players. Other than that, Sorare data is the number one for sure. Like it's the number one for sure. Laird will be happy to hear.
100% is. So like, obviously you've got a little Jesus Ferreira here. When it comes to like America and Asia, do you think you'll be stacking in with clubs, or do you think you'll just be going for individual targets that you do find on statistics?
I heard, is Thales Magno going to Dallas? Or who was it? Velasco? I think it was. Alan Velasco joined Dallas, if I'm not mistaken. Same team as Jesus.
Velasco is not one I know.
He's not on Sorare yet. But I think Alan Velasco is like, I've seen him be a wonder kid in FIFA for multiple years. Like he really had some high potential for quite some time. And I was looking at him and I saw the news and I was like, okay, so maybe I'll go for like an attacking partnership of him and Velasco or Magno. He's really talented as well. I don't know how old he is. I don't know if he's still under 23 eligible this upcoming season.
Yeah, I think Magno's really young.
Yeah.
unfortunately never got a card last year. He was a card I
Yeah,
was desperate for last year, just because he didn't really do much, but just the
yeah,
promise and the profile. But yeah, he's still 19, Talis
yeah.
Magno.
They apparently
Um,
signed him for like 8 mil, I
yeah,
think,
big
and that's
purchase.
huge money, really, for
And
MLS.
big time. And the team they've got him from, Vasco da Gama, are traditionally a really big team in Brazil, but they're actually in the second tier at the
Yeah,
moment. So it's weird to go get a second tier player and pay so
yeah,
much money, but it's just the hype
exactly.
around him. But that Velasco's a new one on me, and I've just searched him on Sorare. He is at Dallas this year, so definitely
Yeah,
keep my eyes peeled on that. Have you
yeah.
watched much
It's
MLS at all, like in general?
not yet, but this season I probably will. Like that's another thing with Sora. Like I've been watching so many games lately, it's actually crazy. Like every single one of my players, if I have a chance to watch their game, I will. Unless it's a goalkeeper, because then it's just pain.
Yeah,
But then you're just sitting there like, no, no, don't attack. Take the ball off him. Take the
mate.
ball off of him.
I did the watch along with Harry. I think you might have caught some of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I had Oblak against Barca picking up 6 points.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Oh,
What
it's
happened to him, man? I mean, his defense is a shambles, but still, like, what happened to Oblak, man? He was the goat there in that position.
yeah. Well,
But
I've,
yeah,
I've I've actually been talking about Atleti to a lot of people recently because I've watched them a bunch over the last probably longer than that, in fact. But what you'll see from Atleti, and this is maybe a wee insight for everyone, but what you'll see with Atleti over the next month or two is Marcos Llorente's coming back in, Condogbear's coming back in, and Hector Herrera are coming back in.
yeah.
They are the only free defensive midfielders at the club, if you can call Marcos Llorente a defensive
He's been
midfielder.
playing right back, hasn't he?
He's been playing everywhere. Like, see,
Yeah.
last year at stages, he was playing like full. He was playing in like a 10, just off the striker for periods. So
He was
he's a
playing right wing as well.
and right wing and right back
Yeah.
and everything. So without those guys playing over the last like month or two, especially, and over the whole season, there's been an over reliance on Hermoso, who's
Yeah.
they got him from Espanyol. He's a good little centre back, good backup guy, but he's not a first teamer. And Felipe, who they picked up from Porto,
Ah,
these
he's
guys are,
terrible.
yeah, they're just not top end. And I think like Renan Lodi is another one who came in with a lot of promise. And I think Simeone is kind of like, I don't think he's, I think if he can replace Lodi, or Lodi needs to kick on now. So the whole
Mm,
defense really has massive question marks across it. And then
yeah.
you've got a big question mark defense, and then no defensive midfielder. They're playing Coque and Rodrigo De Paul in
Yeah.
front of a back four. They're just forfeiting a lot of space and a lot of time. And
Yeah.
against a team like Barca, they only need 2 seconds,
Yeah.
and it's pop, pop, pop. They're in the box taking a shot, and
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing. Like their attackers have also been kind of underperforming, haven't they? Like Joao Felix, for example. It's just crazy. I was watching him at Benfica and I was like, wow, this kid is special.
yeah,
And then as soon as he joined Atleti, I was like, yeah, it's okay. Like the first couple of weeks, sure, he's not going to play too well. And yeah, he never really came to be the player that he was supposed to be. It's really sad to see. I hope he picks it up because I liked him a lot when he was at Benfica. He was looking so good.
yeah,
I feel like it's another thing that Atleti. So I saw someone tweet about this. Like, when are creative attackers going to be stopping to join Atleti? Because Simeone kind of ruins the attacking players as they have to just defend and like work really hard. And I kind of see his point. It's really weird to see these creative players join a team that's so based on defending and being so strict about it and having that clean sheet and having that goalkeeper that's going to help them to get it. It's been a bit weird to see players like Joao, for example, join that Atleti squad, especially for the amount that they paid for him.
yeah. I think strikers always do better at Atleti when they don't need developed.
Yeah,
Like Griezmann, amazing. Suarez has done great, and then you
yeah.
go back in history. Forlans and Diego Costas
Oh,
and
yeah.
Falcao's,
Aguero, Torres,
Aguero,
those types of
Torres.
players. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Aguero and Torres might be the exception because they were, in fact, young. But the
Oh,
rest of
yeah.
these
They were young
guys,
at the time. Yeah. True,
but,
true, true.
but the rest of these guys get to Atleti, and they're already a good striker, and they can just plug and play. So,
Yeah.
and again, because I've been quite close to Atleti over the last few years for watching them, I think Cunha is going to come onto a bit of a game, and once they get Griezmann back fit as well, I think the plan is to get. I follow a guy on Twitter called Atleti Universe.
Hmm.
Highly recommend if you've got any Atleti players or you're interested in Atleti.
Mm.
Um, and if you follow that account, you'll see that there is a lot of love coming out of Atleti, particularly from Simeone for Felix. So I think there's a point now where they're like, right, it started at the weekend, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh no, he didn't. He came off. Did he start?
I
No, he
saw
didn't.
him play in the highlights. I'm not too sure though if he was a starter.
Or did he start? I'm losing my mind now. No, he did start. It was Felix and Suarez started, and Correa was on the
Yeah.
bench. But there's definitely some sort of turning points happened, and it feels like he's going to be starting much more. And I think that's the starting point. I know it's a bit of a tongue twister, but he
Yeah.
just needs to be on the pitch more often to get the chance to get form.
Definitely. Yeah.
You know, and it's funny how like watching football, like, and again, this is the kind of thing that we're on about now. Like with Diaby, like I'm the same as you. I've watched Leverkusen for about 2 or 3 years, and Diaby, every time I've watched him, I'm like, this guy is not up to it. But when
Mm.
you look at his Sorare scores, and when you look at his actual goals and assists, you can't argue with it. You know,
Yeah.
he's doing it. You know,
Yeah.
he's
And
proven
he's
me
still
wrong.
so young. Like you gotta kind of bank on the fact that these guys will keep on learning, will keep on getting better. And in that squad, with the performances that they're showing, I can definitely see him be even better. Like I was at a time, I was looking at him like a year ago or something. And I was thinking maybe Liverpool should get him like as a backup to Mane and build him up to be that guy on that left hand side. Obviously now brought in Luis Diaz, so that's not going to happen. But yeah, like that's exactly what I feel like with Diaby. He was never really that guy, but then you look at his stats and you're like, oh man, something's not right here.
He's doing it.
Yeah, he's doing it. He's doing it. I'm just not seeing it.
Yeah, because I went to, I see, I've watched Leverkusen a bunch, and I had the good fortune of having a ticket to Celtic v Leverkusen, so I got to see him like in person, and I was watching him like, yeah, this guy is what I think he is. I don't think he's that great, but
Mm.
he does do it, man. It's irrefutable.
It does
But
show on his Sorare price though as well.
yeah,
Like
aye,
you see that people kind of rate him, but also don't.
yeah, it's
You
suspicious
see
that it
him.
might go away.
Yeah, exactly. Like I wonder where his next step would be.
That's hard to say. Because you look at Leon Bailey, he gets similar performance and scores at Leverkusen, and he went to Villa. You know, so
Yeah,
not that that's a bad move. Villa are definitely on the up, but
yeah.
it's hard to
He's been
tell.
injured, hasn't he?
Yeah, he got injured a
Yeah.
bit after the move. If you've been watching a lot of Hoffenheim, one guy I was really excited, two guys at Hoffenheim I was really excited about in the off season coming into this year was David Raum and Jorginho Rutter.
Mm,
What I've not seen any Hoffenheim this year, or maybe once. I've basically seen no Hoffenheim this year.
yeah.
What do you make of those two guys?
For me, Ram looked unbelievable. I mean, his SO5 scores, forget
Crap.
about it. The amount of times he puts in a great cross and they hit the post, I've seen it at least 4 times in the past, I don't know, 5 weeks or something like that. He is so good moving forward. But on the other side, every time the opponents attack, I see him just sprinting back and not really catching up to those attacks of the opponent. So defensively, he needs to definitely work on that. But moving forward as like a modern fullback, he is so good. He is really, really good. And I like him a lot, but I had to get rid of him. I had him initially,
Huh.
but I had to get rid of him because I realized that fullbacks are so reliant on decisives, and I just can't be having them in the team anymore unless their name is Trent or Alfonso Davies. So
I heard you say the same thing about Tio Hernandez.
yeah, exactly. Like they are so. I mean, Theo takes corners and everything, and Raum does too at this point. But I just don't see that in the Hoffenheim team, right? So I don't see that tall guy up front getting the headers in all the time, which Rutte has been doing. Like I saw him hit the post twice in one game, I think it was, and he's good. But a lot of times when he's on the attack and he's moving forward, I see his head always looking at the floor. I'm like, bro, pick up your head, look
Yeah,
around. There's people next to you. Play the ball a little bit more. He's like really sticking to the ball when he's carrying the ball forward and not necessarily realizing what's going on around him a lot of times. But he's very talented. And the issue is like this whole attacking thing with Hoffenheim, where you have like a front three of Dabur, Kramaric, and then Ruta or Bebu or all those players. They're all actually kind of strikers, but they
yeah,
play in weird positions. So it doesn't really work. I feel like there's too many of them. Someone has to go.
yeah.
And obviously, Rita is a talent. So I'm assuming they're going to kind of bank on him to come through.
So you reckon he looks good then, Rutter?
I think so. Yeah, I think he looks very good. My question would then be though, like, who goes away to make place for him, right? So
Yeah.
to be moved out of the team to get into that spot. I just don't know who that person would be, because Dabur has been doing all right. He's been scoring goals. I don't know if he would play as that main striker in that team yet. I mean, I don't see it this season, but he's very talented for sure. He's really good.
That's the thing. Like I say, I've not seen any Hoffenheim this year, but I don't know if you know this, Chani. Most of the people listening to this will, but I, in a former life, was a football coach. I've got a B license, UEFA, and
Yeah.
all that. And I've had a man crush on Julian Nagelsmann ever since he got the Hoffenheim job. So under Nagelsmann, I watched a lot of Hoffenheim, and I think ever since then, and maybe a wee bit before Nagelsmann, they always do play quite a complicated system.
Yeah.
It's not, you can't look at their team sheet and go, oh, this is it for me. They will be
Yeah.
all over the place. Like Nicolas Sula would be a right centre back and be charging up the right wing,
Yeah.
and all sorts of crazy stuff, So yeah, they're a funny team to watch. But again, similar to what we were talking about earlier with like Kirk and whatever. When I see Hoffenheim, like that's why I was excited about Rutter, because they signed him from Rennes, and obviously Rennes have brought through Camavinga, Suleimana. There's been lots of guys come out of Rennes, and then I'm thinking, right, well, they've got a good academy. I trust Hoffenheim's talent identification. So if they're buying a guy from Rennes and they're going to be playing him, that's a guy I want to pay attention to this year.
He has a big impact on most of the games I've seen. Like a lot of the big chances have him involved in it. So that's a big positive. Once he gets the conversion rate up, he can be really, really good because he's quite physical as well. It's not an easy striker to deal with.
Nice.
Running towards you or side by side, you can see his physical side, and he's a good talent, man. He's quality for sure. It's just like, obviously, like with young players generally, it's just that experience that needs to come in. And you see that difference as soon as Kramaric is on the ball. You see it, right? You know that he knows where the players are on the pitch. Just like when you would play FIFA, you see, oh, there's a pass open on the right. Yeah. And he has that vision constantly for his teammates, which Rutter has to build up, because then I feel like their attacks would be a lot more fruitful. Let me ask you something. Like for you, how does it feel seeing other people from other entertainment areas coming into Sorare lately? Because there's been a lot of people coming in, like obviously Nep and myself, and other YouTubers are looking into it. I've seen some big German YouTuber actually come in as well. I don't know what his name was, Sydney or something like that. He has like thousands of viewers. How do you feel about it? Like these people coming in, do you see it as a positive in terms of like advertising the platform and growing it? Or do you see it as like, no, this is my thing. Leave me alone. This is my game.
Well, my main motivation for making content really comes from two places. The first one is none of my immediate friends do any of this. So it's I don't know what the word is I'm thinking about. It's like a release for me to be able to talk about all the stuff that I'm seeing, and I can't wait to see this guy play at the weekend, and Moussa Diaby, I think he's shit, but he's actually good, or whatever. And then the second one is like from other things I'd played in the past, like I would just have well more insight and well more perspective on things than what my wallet could action. And I just think, right, well, I can't buy this guy and make any money out of it because I've got no more money, but maybe somebody else will, if you know what I mean. So with those two things, I always try and keep that in my mind, because it's dead easy to get sidetracked when it comes to like how many subs have you got and getting followers and all this kind of stuff. It's dead easy to get swept away with it all. But for me, no, I just see it as more people to talk to.
Yeah, 100%, man. Like for me personally, when I set up the YouTube channel, I had like a moment of thinking, okay, should I just like advertise this on my main channel and my second channel, which like in total have over 400,000 subscribers? Obviously, it would bring in a lot of people into the channel and kind of help Sorare grow. But at the same time, I didn't want to do that because I wanted it to be natural. I wanted for the people that actually care about the platform to find me and be like, hey, this is someone new that we can engage with. And I wanted to get into the community and understand things before I like really push it on all my socials. But without even wanting to, I've been so addicted to it that all I talk about is Sorare. so at this point, people are like, man, this guy just constantly talks about this. What is this about? Let me check his channel.
But that's the thing about Sorare. I think a lot of people of our generation, I always call it generation football. You've grown up, seen all the evolution. We were talking about that FB ref there. The evolution in football coverage and statistics has been incredible over the last 10 years.
That thing didn't exist a couple of years ago, right? Like expected
assist
goals
didn't even exist.
Yeah,
assist wasn't even a thing until like the year 2000 or something. When you hear old players talking, like, I remember I think it was a thing with Roy Keane or something like that. It was, oh yeah, I don't know if you've seen this. It was about a year or two ago, but they were doing like their all-time Man United or Liverpool 11 or whatever, and Roy Keane put Ryan Giggs in it,
Yeah.
and Jamie Carragher was like, "Why are you putting Giggs in it? He's
Oh
only
yeah,
ever
it
got."
was Mane against Giggs, wasn't it? I
He's
think.
like,
Yeah.
Ryan Giggs has never had more than 3 assists, and Roy
Yeah.
Keane's like, we didn't even fucking count assists, back then, it's like score a goal or you've not done it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's been such an evolution, but a lot of people that have grown up through this evolution, like me and yourself and most of the people watching this game just absolutely hits buttons like nothing before,
Oh man, it does. It does. Like I'm sat here all day thinking I want to do more on the platform, but there's nothing to do right now. But I'm still gonna sit here and look and just look at my players for
Yeah,
hours upon hours and just think, what could I do moving forward? Like there's constant opportunity to improve and make plans and do research. It never ends. And that's
big time.
something that I really like about it because in FIFA, generally, once you have that top team, there's not that much progression going on. You're like, okay, well, I'm set now, and that's it. But on this, there's always that next step. Like, even for, especially for like smaller budgets, right?
Big time.
Starting off in limited and kind of working your way up and then getting to the rare, and then maybe possibly picking up 1 or 2 super rares to play in like the pro divisions and stuff like that. Um, I like that. But as I said before, I think there needs to be more of a progression system. But as long as it isn't here, all the accounts that have invested more have a massive advantage against the users that are going to be coming in the future.
Yeah, it's totally unavoidable at this stage. But in terms of like that progression, it's a tough one as well because I'm always caught between a rock and a hard place because like the game has to be intuitive, it has to be inviting, has to be welcoming. And I know for me when I started this account, my Sorare account, the majority of my money has came out of this account. I didn't come into this with thousands of pounds or whatever. I came in
Yeah.
with a couple of hundreds, and I was quite fortunate at timing and all the rest of it. But I remember first coming in and like I would, I'd maybe spent, I'm going to say like £600, £1,000, maybe on my first couple of players, my first team, and my thoughts were, oh my god, see if in like a year I could have a super rare, that would be amazing. And then like fast forward a year and I had like 15 of them,
Yeah.
and it's like sometimes like you don't realize sometimes how easy some things. But the point that this is a struggle I have sometimes is it when you're trying to shoot towards something, it can look well farther away than what it actually is.
Mm-hmm.
If you're
Mm-hmm.
obviously money is a massive accelerant, but time can be as well, and and
Yeah.
actually working things out. And I think sometimes people can be, I think this is a modern society thing. Expect like, yeah, I want to put in a bit of work to get to the next level, but I don't want to put in all of that work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
put in like this little bit, and then that should I should reap some sort of reward or whatever. And I think when people actually do the progression, like you'll notice it going from limited to rare. And I noticed Sojiba, we were talking about him earlier on, friend of both of ours, has done the same thing where he started off with limited, really cut his teeth, and then it's like yourself, sell the limited, lessons are learned, and then go and get rares. And then
Yeah.
I think once people start to walk down that path, I don't think the progression is far stretched out as it does feel when you're on day one opening your account. Because day
Mm-hmm.
one opening your account and looking at the price of super rares and rares, you'd be like,
Yeah. Yeah.
wow, imagine
Yeah.
having 20 of those things,
Yeah. 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 That is exactly what it is. Like, just I think if I can give people that are new just one tip generally from my experience now is quality over quantity all the time. And when I was looking at when I was beginning, I was looking at John his account and like scrolling through the pages and pages and stuff. I was like, why does this guy have 50,000 players? Just why don't you just have the best players and just go for quality instead of having so many? And then obviously I understand now looking into it, like for yourself, for example, this next game week, I don't have anyone playing. No
Yep.
one. Absolutely zero. So in that sense, it clearly is good to build up a bigger gallery if you have the chance to do so. So then I understood, okay, so it does make sense that he has that many players around. But at the same time, I'm like, the quality, you got to get rid of that emotional attachment to certain players at times.
Yep.
Like for me, Grigic has been my best performer since I joined the platform, right? Ever since I got him, he has been just going up in his performances, getting goals, assists every single game. And I'm looking at it right now and I'm like, okay, so next game they're playing against the 10th place team. but the one after that, they're playing against the first place team. So my opportunity to sell him is now after this game week when he has hopefully another good performance and then his L5 looks even more dark green, right? And I just think to myself, I just have to not bring in this emotional attachment to the players because I had that on Ultimate Team. Every time an SBC comes out, I'm like, oh man, I can't put this guy in because I kind of like him. I did his SBC like 2 months ago, and now I'm supposed to put him in into this SBC. No, I don't want to do that. So I don't want to bring that mentality into this at all because I know it's going to hurt me. So whenever I have the chance to sell people for profit, gone
Yeah.
and improve the quality of the team.
Well, I've definitely taken a leaf out of that book over the last week or two. Like since the whole like maybe the SPFL Celtic are going to come on board, I've been selling everything that I
Preparing.
can, yeah. And you know, some of the cards I sold like Weston McKennie that I won as a reward. I'm half American. I don't know if you know that, so I've got like a bit
Oh,
of an
okay.
attachment to the American team because like I'm 30. I'm about to be 34. I've seen Scotland in one World Cup, but I've supported the United States in like 4 World Cups. You know,
Mm,
so I have a wee bit of anyway. So I sold McKennie, I sold Musa, I've sold a few of those guys that I was like really attached to. But again, I think getting attached to cards is a bit of the beauty of it. Like I'll never
mm.
sell my Ferran Torres. I'll probably never sell my Memphis Depay, my
Yeah, like
Leroy
me with
Sané,
Musiala, for example. Like
Musiala. Yeah,
I'm gonna hold on to him
yeah.
forever.
So I think there's definitely a tightrope to walk where
Yeah,
Gurgic, guys that are SO5 players, there is a line you need to draw, but it's like this guy's worth too much money now. You know,
yeah,
like I've done my job. I've took him from nothing to something,
yeah,
and then let's say skim a bit off the top, put that in my pocket, and then go buy
yeah,
a replacement. You know, that's the
yeah,
move to make. But I think the whole NFT angle was so rare. Like I couldn't not have an account with a Musiala in it or with a Ferran Torres, you know, somebody who I'm like, or just got a Gio Reyna, you know, somebody like
yeah,
I'm with this guy for the next 10 years. He's locked in. Might not
yeah,
play this year, but he's here and he's with me.
yeah. Especially if you look at the prices of the players a year ago, like the ones that even didn't play a year ago and still aren't playing, but because the platform has gone up so much in terms of users and demand for the players, their price is still like double, tripled, even
Yeah.
though they have been sat on the bench just like last year. Like last year, you bought him for 100 euros as a rare, and now he's worth 1,200. And he has been doing nothing SO5 wise, but people still see the potential in him in the future, right? And once he starts playing, then you're looking at, I don't know, 5 times your investment.
Yeah.
So I see that point as well. And with the youngsters, especially, I am more inclined to hold on to them. So for like Jesus Ferreira and the Hilgers that I just bought from Twente, who has been doing extremely well lately as a centre back for them.
Yeah, you mentioned
Um,
him earlier on. That's a new name to me, Chani. That guy.
Yeah, he just recently started doing extremely well for the squad, and apparently Feyenoord is in for him in the next season. His L5 is a 76 right now, and one thing I found amazing about him was like his all round scores. So just like 2 games ago, he had a 48.6 all round score as a
Nice.
centre back, and I was like, wow, okay, no decisive and 84 points in total. He
Wow.
looked
Yeah.
incredible to me, and I'm fully aware that I'm buying into the hype. It's not like I don't see that, but just today, someone bought him for 1,400. There you go. So I bought him for 1,041 just yesterday, and someone bought him today for 1,400. So looking at that, you
40%.
can see that there's some hype in this player, and he's only 20. He has so much time in terms of under 23. So yeah, I'm gonna get
I
attached
love
to
things like
certain
that.
players. I'm fully aware of it. I definitely am. But with other players that are not necessarily under 23, I'm gonna take my profits unless they are players like Fabian Ruiz, where I see him do well for at least 5 more years, right? But with
Yeah.
someone like Paye, I'm aware he's 34, right? How long can he do this? So with players like him, I'm more inclined to sell. But players like Fabian Ruiz and all the under 23s, I can see myself holding on to them for a long time and getting that emotional attachment as well, which is not necessarily a good thing at times, but sometimes it goes right. You keep a hold of these players and they do extremely well, get you rewards in return. You paid off the purchase and all good.
Yeah, totally. Because I think like Fabian Ruiz, like some of these guys you can get into your club that you can hold for the longest time. And in a weird way, they really save you a lot of money because some people will like we're talking about McGurgich, right? Let's say Gurgich peaks off, you sell him, you take the profit, you skim a bit of profit, you reinvest. doing that with like all your cards, like you will get to a situation where you'll have a bunch of guys that you don't really know, the situation.
Mm,
Their form doesn't matter. You've sold a guy at such a high price because he is doing great, and then if you're
yeah,
buying a guy that's cheaper, there's a reason he's cheaper, sort of thing. So if you
exactly.
continuously do that, it kind of becomes to the detriment of SO5 performance potentially.
Yeah, how many Grigits am I gonna find? Like, how many times is that gonna happen where I get lucky and he performs really well?
Well, mate, to be honest with you, I think more often than you will maybe give yourself. Again, I think a lot of people don't. I do this a lot. Laird said this on a video we did recently. I give like when I'm selling stuff, I don't always try and get out the top because it's just only one person can get out of the top. It's just so you need to. For me anyway, I always need to remind myself of that and accept that.
Mm,
But again, equally, like I look at guys sometimes and I think, oh, that's a great trading opportunity. Then I think that guy's 500 quid. Who the fuck's going to pay double that for him? Nobody. He's not that great, and I won't buy it. And then 2 weeks will go by, and he's like treble the price, and I'm like, oh, you know. So sometimes, like, I think you can give the market, like, I do it very much on both sides of the table, too much credit, where it's like, oh, surely this guy, he's already, like you said there with your defender, you picked him up for $1,000, and then you're maybe thinking he's probably not got much more room to go because that seems like a top end price. You're
yeah,
bought into hype, big L5 scores, but then people still pay more money for him, because
yeah,
they want them as well. It's a crazy dynamic, and because ETH is all circulated around this as well, it becomes very difficult to pin people to price points and to brackets of,
yeah.
this is this type of player, so he should be this amount, and so much going on. There's so many moving parts. It can be hard to really quantify some of these things.
Yeah, one thing I would love to know from you as well, like as a long-term player on the platform, obviously we all experienced Sorare in a bull market, right? If things go well, as the market seems to be recovering lately, I've been learning crypto an hour a day for 7 months now, and I look at it and I'm like, if the market now actually recovers the way it's supposed to, and this is not like a dead cat bounce, um, we can see ETH possibly go up to like 10K, right? That is definitely a possibility, or at least 8K or something like that until the market crashes again. I see a lot of people value their players in ETH. I understand. It makes sense. It really does. But at the same time, what's going to happen when the ETH price now triples or goes up 4x in the upcoming, I don't know, 6 to 7, 8 months until the end of the year? Like, some analysts are predicting that we are still in a bull market and we are going to see that 10K ETH before everything comes crashing down with the interest rates and everything happening in the US. Like, do you really think it makes sense to value your players in ETH at this point in time when we are possibly going to be running into a parabolic run for the end of the year? Because all these players that people picked up now, like that unique Haaland, for example,
Yep.
if we 4x in price right now for ETH, that takes so much away from his value in ETH, right?
Yeah.
It would just drop it down to, I don't know how much, but like a lot. And I just don't see, as a casual, especially if you come into this and you have no clue about ETH at all, should people be valuing their players in ETH or not? That's one thing I personally would really like to know from you, because I know you guys that have been on the platform for a long time tend to value everything in ETH, right?
Yeah. So I'll start off by telling you something that is very childish and is not any sort of concrete advice on a mindset to have, right?
Yeah.
When I come in, I still don't know, like, if you're doing an hour a day on crypto, there's a good chance, Cani, you know more than I do at this point. But when I very first came into Sorare, I knew nothing about crypto, knew nothing about ETH, but I just looked at ETH as FIFA points. That's all I looked at it as.
Okay.
It's an in-game currency
Uh-huh.
because like there's people in Japan, there's people in America, South America. So this is like the in-game currency that
The
we're all messing
global
about with.
currency for the game, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the mindset I've always had with it. Is it's just that, and then obviously when real world things happen, my first when I first joined the platform, from June to like the November, my first like 4 or 5 months, I bought like 20 ETH over that time, and ETH was between £180 and £300.
Oh, what a good entry.
It was fun, yeah. But I did, even at that time, I'm like, I didn't know anything about crypto, but I always just used to keep in my mind, like, I don't want to know anything about crypto. I'm not here to become a Bitcoin maximalist or anything like
Yeah.
that. This is just the in-game currency. It's in my head. I'm buying FIFA points and I'm buying these cards. That is not advice I recommend anyone adopts, but that was what just got my childish brain
Yeah.
to try and understand what I do. I don't think, to kind of answer your point a bit more directly, I don't think anyone who plays limited values anything in ETH. I think
Yeah, no, I don't think
everyone
so.
who plays limited is in fiat. And then as you move up, it's and again, I kind of touched on this recently, and it's very difficult because there's no real concrete answer, but it is really down to the end. So if I try and buy a card off somebody who's been here as long as I have, it is going to be an ETH negotiation, no two ways
Mm-hmm.
about it.
Mm-hmm.
But other people who aren't ETH native, who have maybe been here for like a year or less, who are all in fiat, I know when I go into negotiations with them, like if ETH is high, then my ETH will get much more out of them because
Yeah,
they're looking at pound notes. Whereas the same card in another person's hand, they'll want an ETH rate that marries in, regardless of the price of ETH. So it's
yeah,
really individual on who you're dealing with if you're going into direct negotiations, and when you're in the auction house, who else is fighting for that auction? Is it somebody that's got a cachet of ETH and that's
yeah.
how they work, or is it someone that's doing the debit card? So as time goes on, and again, I've seen this before Christmas. If you look back before Christmas, I think we were around 20 to 30,000 users with over a card. Probably about, let's say, half of those people would really be ETH. ETH's the way to price it. Another half
Mm,
would be fiat. But now we're at 80,000 users, and the majority of them are in limiteds, and they all value in fiat. So
yeah,
it becomes a popularity contest. If
yeah,
75% of the market values in fiat, then 75% of the market will be valued in fiat. And then it's not really until you get to the uniques where all those guys have had thousands of coins of ETH for the last 15, 20 years that they've been
yeah.
picking up, or however long it's been going for, because that's 100% of that market is those
Mm,
types of users, those types of managers, and that's the currency that they work in. So I think it comes into lots of little micro markets.
yeah,
And I always suggest to everyone is just make sure whatever money you're putting over the till, whether you're valuing it in ETH or euros or pounds or whatever, is you really need to be comfortable with the transaction. Like I bought a Keysung Young Super Rare, right? It's the worst transaction I've ever done in my life.
oh,
Um, I got the 1 of 10. I was really excited for him coming out. He never got a card the year before. He moved to Korea as a former Celtic player, yada yada. I spent 1.6 Ethereum on him, which at the
mm,
time was £2,500. And as that's I think the most. No, it's not. I think I've maybe spent more than that now. But at that time, that was the biggest ETH purchase, the biggest fiat purchase I made. And then after the auction was done and I got it, I kind of sat back and I was like, what have I done?
yeah, yeah.
I spent and I'm looking at it now. I spent £2,400 on a 31-year-old at the time,
Oh,
Keysung Young Super Rare.
okay.
And that kind of reality check really did bring it home for me. Is like, I've got to make sure every transaction, no matter how you're going to dress it up, ETH, euros, pounds, I have to be comfortable with what I'm putting out. Because again, equally, like I've spent thousands of pounds on other cards, but I've not had that sinking feeling when it was done of like, oh, that was 2.5 grand,
Mm,
because it's a lot of money. And again, I say this all the time, but once you spend it, it doesn't come back. It's not a boomerang.
yeah,
Like you spend money and it's gone. It's like same you go into a shop, you give them your £50, you walk out with a bag or whatever. You're not getting your £50 back. It's
yeah,
gone. You've got a bag now, and that's the transaction complete. So, especially when people are new, uh, the main advice I always say to most people is like, try and slowly build up a wallet, and then just try and judge where you can come into the market with whatever
yeah,
Ethereum you can gather. Because like you could start Sorare today and Ethereum is like 2,200, and you can slowly be building it up. But like you've seen over the last month or two, you could wake up one morning and ETH has went back 40%.
yeah,
And then that wallet you've got is diminished in value to a lot of members of the marketplace.
yeah.
So because there's so many moving parts, like you do need to always just be as slow and as careful every day, every week, every month that you possibly can, because there's so many things that could just flip on a head turn.
Yeah,
The guy you're buying, I could have bought that Ki Sung Young and he could have broke his leg the day after.
yeah.
That can happen. It doesn't need to be a
Or you can have a
platform.
situation like Zuma, for example, just now.
Yes, or Greenwood, or
That's it.
anything like that could happen.
That's it. All your money's gone. So
Yep.
yeah, as always, man, the people need one thing I can only say, like, even if you're buying players or buying ETH or crypto in general, man, you gotta put time into understanding what the crypto market is, at least somewhat of an understanding, or
Yeah.
finding people that know what's going on and that are really neutral, are not necessarily people that always constantly stream it's going up, it's going up, it's going up, but
To the
people that
moon.
actually look, yeah, people that actually look at the data and kind of understand what's going on and aren't really like biased in any way, you got to find those people to understand what time you're really moving your money onto the platform. For me, I personally think we're at a moment where if we break out now to the top, it's going to be an incredible run until, I don't know, a couple of months from now, probably Q3, and we're going to be looking at ETH at 10K or 8K or something like that. And at that point, when you look at the graphs of the players in ETH, you're going to see down, right?
Yep.
So I don't see the value in looking at it in ETH at the moment. I don't see it. I see the value when we're down from that parabolic run and we're a bear market where you have at least a year where you can kind of price the players in ETH and look at it like this is going to be a constant. It's going to be going up and down a little bit, but there's not going to be much movement in it, no volatility. So then you can look at the ETH graph and be like, oh, I feel good about that transfer that I've just made.
Yep.
But in those runs to the upside or downside, I just don't see the value in valuing it like that on ETH. Right now, I'm more a bit like fiat focused because at the end of the day, that's what you have to pay tax on, right? I'm not giving the government ETH in tax. I'm giving them I'm giving them real money, right?
That's it.
So yeah, I don't know. That was just something that I wanted to know.
Yeah, the happiest I've been on the marketplace when it comes to like the price of ETH, and I actually got really worried at points last year when it was running away, because
like
if it
4K,
yeah, if it did go away to something crazy, then you don't really know what will happen to the value of your gallery and how you transact and all that kind of stuff. I think like if somehow you could just nail down ETH to be like £1,500 a coin forever and it
yeah.
never moves
Stable
again,
coin on the platform will be good.
then I think because I always think about the run of the mill consumer, the man on the street. If I come into this, yeah, this is the in-game currency. It's Ethereum, and Ethereum is a £1,500 a coin, £1,200 a coin, never moves, whatever.
Mm,
Working out what half an ETH is really easy and really
yeah,
quick. You're not like, oh, what's the price of ETH now? And
yeah,
it's 2,436. So what does 0.4 of an ETH then equal? You know,
yeah,
for me, I think consumers, myself included, like easy things to work out. Like
yeah.
if I spend an ETH, it's something, and because it moves all the time, it becomes quite
I think that's
troublesome.
why they also on the platform have like the prices all the time. Mainly the euro price is the main one you see.
Yep.
And then next to it the ETH is in small letters. So it kind of shows that they are more fiat based a little bit more to kind of make it understandable for the consumer coming in.
100%.
But yeah, something like a stable coin would be nice. A set price for your entry, something
Yeah.
like that would be great. But I don't know how they would switch it now.
No, I don't know either.
I feel like it's going to be extremely hard to do.
But I think as well, and I've said this for probably the last like 2 years or so. The thing was so rare that a lot of people need to really get a hand on when we're thinking about all this stuff is so rare isn't a crypto thing that wants to do fantasy football. It's a
Mm.
fantasy football thing that is exploiting the NFT tech
Yeah,
to give us this
exploiting blockchain. Yeah,
next level of engagement, ownership. It's a
yeah,
alternative asset. I feel like it's a collectible, that kind of thing. They're incentivized to make it mainstream, and the mainstream isn't crypto. The mainstream is fiat. So as we see over time, and like you just said there, Chani, amazing observation. They're trying to pull all the Ethereum stuff into the background so that the casual user doesn't even need to worry about the price of ETH or
yeah,
what's going on. They just come in and it's then maybe I do a video in a year, you do a video in a year when all this is kind of blown off and maybe there's 300,000 users or more. And it's like, oh, by the way, see these cards? They're actually NFTs. They're actually on the blockchain, by the way.
yeah,
And it's like a hidden detail that people won't know to come onto the
yeah,
platform rather
yeah,
than the now. It's kind of front and center. It's all about
yeah,
ETH and NFTs and blockchain.
yeah,
They really want it to go into the background. And I think when we get to that point, that's the game buster.
yeah. True, true.
Magic. Well, Chani, I think I've taken up plenty of your time as it is, mate.
All
It's
good.
been an absolute pleasure. We need to do this again soon.
Yes, mate. Would love to. Once I come in with my first couple of rewards.
We'll do some pack openings.
I'll be running around in a room screaming.
I highly doubt it, but if you don't know who Chani is, there'll be a link to his channel in the description down below. Make sure you go give him a follow and follow his content as well. One of the things I love about having Chani on with us today, and I've seen this to him before we came on, is watching that new user come in with someone who's got, a wee bit of working knowledge of football in terms of like gaming societies and stuff like that, come in and really get their toes in the water, get in the deep end. So if you love that kind of content, CaniSports is your man. Again, link will be in the description of the video below. About to pop on screen there now some other stuff I've made that YouTube thinks you might like. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and retweet and all that good stuff. And I will catch you on the next one. Thanks again,
Yes.
Cani.
Hey, mate. Thank you very much for having me on.
Boom.